President Trump had chance after chance after chance to get ahead of this coronavirus pandemic in the United States. He failed. Congress can't make the same mistakes. Senators should not leave town. I just saw Senator McConnell on the floor. It's his decision. One senator from one state can make this decision to walk away, to fail to take care of the $12 an hour worker who's sick, who has to choose between going to work and perhaps getting sicker, perhaps infecting others, or stay home and give up her $12 an hour, $96 a day job when she struggles with her rent. We've put her in that position. Senator McConnell can make who was standing right here a minute ago, whose office is just down the hall, who can make that unilateral decision on whether we stay and actually do the right thing. The Senate has no business leaving. We shouldn't leave town until we pass the House package to help workers and to support our communities. And President Trump needs to sign it. We need to do our jobs. We need to take care of the workers who are going to need help paying their mortgage, paying the rent, taking care of their children if schools close or they get sick. It's really, really simple. It's why we need to pass paid sick days now and to shore up unemployment insurance funds immediately. We know there are going to be lots of layoffs. I'm not alarmist. I'm not panicky. I think we're going to deal with this, right? But we need the majority leader, Senator McConnell, who sits right here and runs the Senate, who makes the decisions on whether we work or don't work, whether he sends us home or keeps us here working. Senator McConnell needs to make the decision to keep us here as soon as the House passes this bill, that the Senate takes it up. Paid sick leaves are one of the most important things we can do to stop the spread of this virus. We know already that our economy is going to get hurt. We know the President of the United States judges the economy by the stock market. We know, first president I've ever seen do that, but that's beside the point. But we also know that the stock market's up and down and mostly down, and investors are uneasy at best. They want more predictability. They're not getting it. But we know the most important thing, Mr. President, is to deal with the spread of the coronavirus. If we can't contain that, if we can't do anything about that, if we can't stop the spread of this virus, the other stuff just doesn't matter as much. But you start with the spread of this virus. The best way to stop the spread of the virus is to say to people if they're sick, you can stay home and you can get sick pay. Every other country in the world, every other rich country in the world provides sick pay for people who can't go to work because they're sick. It's as simple as that. And if we don't pass a sick day policy, if we leave town right now, even if we come back next week, which we're not scheduled to, again, Senator McConnell's decision, even if we're only gone a week, that's 5 more work days of sick people going to work when they shouldn't, getting sicker, infecting others with coronavirus or the flu or anything else, or staying home and giving up their pay, which they need to meet their rent payment. The House package takes care of this. Senators shouldn't be leaving this building until we get this help to the people we serve. People in Ohio, people in Indiana, and the presiding officer state, people are scared. They're angry, and I'm angry. Many of us have been sounding the alarm for years, warning President Trump and Leader McConnell, who always does President Trump's bidding, as if he doesn't even represent a state. He represents the president in this body. We've been sounding the alarm, warning the president that he's made us less prepared to handle a crisis like this one. President Trump tried to gut the Centers for Disease Control and the National Institutes of Health. Think about this. The United States of America, as recently as 10 or 15 years ago, we had the best public health infrastructure, the best public health safety net in the history of the world. We have the Centers for Disease Control. We have the National Institutes of Health. In Cincinnati, we have the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, only one of its kind in the world. And we have our county public health departments in each of Ohio's 88 counties and all over the country. We had the best in the world until President Trump began to try to gut the CDC and the NIH. He refused to fill key public health positions. And most importantly, this is just unbelievable when you think about it, and I know Senator Young, the presiding officer, had concerns about that. He got rid of the White House's entire global health security team 2 years ago. Let me repeat that. For 2 years, President Trump left us without the team that's supposed to manage pandemics. Now, you know what that means? It means that There were about 40 people at the White House, led by an admiral, who was an MD, an admiral who was also a doctor. His job was to survey the world and look around for potential illness outbreaks, to look around for potential pandemics. It might have been SARS. It might have been Ebola. It might have been resurgence of polio. It might have been any number of things. His job at the White House, we're a rich enough country, we can do this, and we do it to protect. We care about the world. We protect our own people, though, as we see. If we don't, we see what happens. His job was to continue to look around the world and look out for these kind of pandemics. The president fired him. The president fired the whole office. The president's never replaced him. I sent him a letter at a time, more than 600 days ago, back in May of 2018, telling him to stop dismantling our healthcare infrastructure. Now we're all paying the price for President Trump's decision. We see the real-time consequences. This was unilateral disarmament. We disarmed. We unilaterally disarmed against the world's infectious diseases. We know that international tuberculosis is a problem. We know that international HIV/AIDS is a problem. We know that international malaria is a problem. We work against those. And you know what? When I think about one of the things I'm proudest about in our country is what we've done about public health. We led the charge to eradicate smallpox. Smallpox killed hundreds of millions of people over time in this world, hundreds of millions. We led the charge to eradicate smallpox. This country did. Then we led the charge to eradicate polio all over the world. I'm old enough to remember children, not children anymore, children I went to grade school with who had polio. They were recovered, but they still limped. They still had signs of polio. Not crippling signs, but signs of polio. We did that. We took on tobacco in this body. Senator Durbin and Senator Blumenthal and Senator Merkley and I and others, we went after for 50 years. People smoke at half the rate today than they did 50 years ago. It's starting to go back up because of e-cigarettes. But we've had huge public health victories in this country. And you know what? We have a president of the United States now, and we have a Senate Republican leader, Mitch McConnell, who, well, he certainly tried to help tobacco, but I won't even talk about that. But we have a president and we have a Senate Majority Leader that simply aren't. They dismantled. They did all they could to dismantle the Centers for Disease Control and NIH. They left us prepared when the president fired the global security team at the White House that looked out for illnesses. And now what? We have a global pandemic on our hands. President Trump needs to stop pretending he can lock out a disease by putting up walls at the border that he's already allowed to spread and start making up. He needs to start making up for all the lost time he's wasted. And so does Senator McConnell. We need to make sure we don't end up with a financial crisis on top of the public health crisis. For some of us, this feels like deja vu. We've been in moments like this before. We've seen the market drop. We worried about the financial system. We bailed out the banks, but we didn't do anything for the workers. That's what this body always does. I'm certain Senator McConnell will get around to, and President Trump, helping corporations that have been hurt. There have been corporations that have been damaged badly. Hotel chains, transportation companies, particularly airlines, they've been hurt badly by this. That part's going to get worse. I'm sure that they will open the public checkbook to make sure there are billions of dollars for these industries, but we shouldn't do it until we take care of the workers. If we're going to give X number of dollars to the airlines, as we probably should, we better give most of that money. Most of that money better end up in the pocket of the flight attendants, in the pilots, in the ticket agents, in the mechanics, in all the people, in the baggage handlers, and all the people that work for the airlines that this body forgets about. They serve us when we fly. We don't even know their names. We probably know the CEOs' names, and we always help them, but we ought to be helping the workers. Right now, we have a chance to stop this from spiraling out of control. We don't have another 2008 on our hands yet, but we have to act now. We don't go home for a week or two or three because Senator McConnell has some, whatever it is, that would send us home. We need to act now. We need to make sure we focus our efforts on preventing this virus from spreading and that we don't have one crisis, the healthcare crisis, stacked on top of an economic crisis, making the healthcare crisis worse. We know that job's harder because of all the ways that President Trump and Leader McConnell have undone the many protections we put in place after the last crisis. They backed away from Wall Street reform safeguards. The president had a chance to get ahead of this virus and other public health threats, and he failed. He had a chance to get ahead of the financial risks, and he failed. But luckily, Senator McConnell and The president haven't succeeded in getting rid of all of our Wall Street reform protections. They haven't succeeded in repealing the Affordable Care Act. Because of that, because of the work we did a decade ago with President Obama, we're in a better position now than we were in 2009. But we have to come together. We have to rise to this challenge. Corporate America needs to, too. One way we can do that is to suspend these stock buybacks. Now, Congress gave a huge tax cut to the wealthy in this country 2 years ago. 70% of the benefits went to the wealthiest 1%. I sat in the White House with the president and about 10 senators. The president said, you know, everybody's pay is going to go up $4,000, some as much as $9,000. Those were the bookend numbers he used. And he said that if we do this tax cut, the corporations it's going to trickle down and workers are going to get these raises. Well, it didn't exactly happen that way. But you know what did happen? After they got this tax cut, the executives started to do stock buybacks. So we need to suspend taking money that should have been invested in workers, taking money that should have been invested in technology and upgrading their company, but it went to executives. Not exactly a shock to most of us. That's what happened. Banks need to invest in their communities, not investing in their CEO's stock portfolio. Right now, JP Morgan is in the middle of an ongoing $30 billion in stock buybacks. Wells Fargo is in the midst of a $23 billion stock buyback, as if their executives, in all of their criminality and bad decisions, if they've earned it, that money'd be better spent investing in small businesses and medical research and relief for people who need help. The reason big banks are supposed to have that money is so that they keep lending and keep communities afloat when we have crises like this. It's time for all of us to come together in the Senate, in the White House, in the communities across the country, and yes, on Wall Street. That means, Mr. President, we don't leave this building until we've done everything we need to do to put this epidemic under control, to get this epidemic under control, to get our communities the testing capacity and tools they need to manage this crisis, to support the workers who are going to get hurt. And Leader McConnell, his responsibility is, I don't care how he votes in the end, but make the decision to put the House bill on the floor so we can vote on it. And President Trump, the day he gets it, needs to sign it. Let's get help to the people we serve. Not next week, not 2 weeks from now, not tomorrow. Let's do it today.